They had been through 4 lead pastors, Tim, in 18 months. 4 lead pastors in 18 months. And so now the senior pastor who or lead pastor who's there has been there for about 5 years. So things are stabilized, it's healthy. But when he came on board, they established some values and they, put them on a wall or in their employee handbook. But what we were reflecting on was they really haven't been touched in the last 5 years. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Leading Smart podcast. We're in season 3, leading in real time. And I say this every week, but we are leading in real time. Where are you today, Tim?
We are not far from each other, I think, today. I'm on the north side of Houston, and you're in the middle of Houston.
Yep. You know what's funny is I kind of forgot that we were so close because I think of even where you are on the north side of Houston is like without traffic, like 40 minutes from my house right now because I live inside the city and where you are is a suburb. With traffic, it could be up to like an hour and 20 minutes. And so like in my head, I wasn't even thinking about how close you are to me.
Same state, pretty close to each other. Yep.
Yep.
We got to spend the day yesterday with the church, working together with the church in the city, which was fantastic. Had a great day.
Mhm. It was.
Came back feeling really good about that.
Yep. And I feel like the last 48 hours, not even 48 hours, 36 hours maybe, has been such a great example of just the exciting season that we're in at Leading Smart, where you and I were together all day on site with a client yesterday, but we still had to have a 2-hour virtual meeting today just to talk about all of the other projects and things that we're working on because we
Yeah.
had 0 time when we were in person together yesterday? So anyway, if you're in a season like that, whether it's a fun season and there's lots to celebrate, or you're in a season that feels like that because you're having to clean up a lot of messes, we see you. We know how it is to be in all the
Yeah.
meetings and all the things. And yeah. All right. Well, what I love about this season is we literally decide what we're going to talk about like right before, usually. And you can tell how much margin I have in my week by if I'm like, Tim, we should talk about this today. Or if you're like, Holly, what are we going to talk about today?
Right. Right.
Today was one of those days if you're like, what are we going to talk about today? So this has come
But it
up.
was easy to come up with because we've both been in these conversations this week.
Exactly. Yes. And what I also like about the topic that we're going to talk about today, it has come up in all shapes and sizes of churches. So large churches that are very well resourced and tiny church plant churches. And everything in between. This always comes up. And the topic is culture. Now, this is a big topic. We could do an entire season, which we probably will at some point, on culture. We have a whole ebook on culture. And so, yeah, this is a big topic. But what we want to share today are 5 steps to creating a healthier church staff culture. And I know, Tim, this is a topic that you are so passionate about. I think that's one of the reasons why maybe we like each other so much. Because when you first came to us at Vanderbiltman, that was something that I really resonated with you. And we were interviewing you was just your passion for culture, because that was a topic that we were really passionate about. And then you and I have been able to work on different books and resources throughout the years on culture. But why is this such a topic that you're passionate about?
I think in the context, most of my context has been in church staffs, although I had a stint for 9 years with a nonprofit and a stint with you at Vanderbilt, which was a for-profit. But in the context of the church, I just see the impact, the vision, the mission matters so much. And the way we do culture as a team is trickle down, meaning if we're healthy at the top, that's going to trickle down to the staff, which is going to trickle into the volunteer leaders, which is going to trickle into the congregation. And the opposite is absolutely true as well. If it's unhealthy at the top, even if, man, we got we're just growing like crazy on the weekends, that lack of health, that dysfunction is going to just destroy what we're trying to accomplish as our mission as a church. And to me, like, you just look at all the corporate studies, forget church for a second, about just empowering staff, about longevity of staff, about people really being engaged as an employee, about just the turnover costs. I mean, there's just so many benefits, and it's not easy, but it's kind of simple. I mean, there's some very simple strategies that you can plug in order to see your staff improve.
Yeah, totally agree. And we've seen that firsthand on really great healthy cultures and the opposite of that. I also think, I think everybody likes to talk about, excuse me, leadership development. But when we think about leadership development, that often is just us as an individual when we're thinking about leadership development, or we're thinking about how to individualize our leadership development of other people on our team. Whereas when we're talking about culture, it's cross organizationally. Like this is something that we can all share. Well, we all share, whether it's bad or whether it's healthy. And so that's why I really like culture conversations because it's bigger picture than just one person, and it's how do we integrate it through, our entire organization, which ultimately trickles into the congregation and our community when we're thinking about our context as a church. So we're going to go through 5 steps today. We're going to go really fast. This is super high level. So I'm just going to say that from the beginning because, again, we could do a whole season on this and we might in the future. But if you have questions about this, please feel free to reach out and email us. But we're going to go pretty quickly through these 5 areas. So the first one is when you are thinking about building a healthier staff culture. They all start with S, by the way, because we love alliteration. So the first one is see it. This is to take an honest assessment of where you are currently in your culture. So tell us about see it, Tim.
Yeah, you can't really do anything with culture until you actually understand what it is and like take a really honest assessment. And even if you're like, man, culture's great, like still like whatever you if you're at the top of the organization, whatever you think it is, it's a couple notches not as good as that.
Hmm.
It's a
Yep.
couple notches down. You're not going to see everything, and so figuring out a way to take an assessment. Now that can be an actually written assessment. There's plenty of good assessments out there. That could be just having like some roundtables and just great conversations with the team and the staff. And I think like you don't rush this step of it. These are, by the way, these 5 steps are steps that at LeadingSmart we walk churches through and staff teams through in order to improve their culture. And so sometimes you sit in the see it phase for a bit because, for example, going into Willow Creek, we probably spent 3 or 4 months once we pulled our culture team together, working on the see it stage of like, we've just got to have an honest assessment and we got to make sure we know, in that case, it was a rough season. Like, how bad is it? And let's like get to the depths of it. And there's some good stuff happening in our culture too, but let's get it all out on the table.
Yeah. And there are multiple ways you can do this. I mean, we love to see a church go through an actual, like a physical assessment, a survey that you send out to the team that's anonymous. But one of the worst things that you can do is to take an assessment and never share any takeaways with the team. We see
Right.
this time and time again, whether it's like a employee net promoter score, which is just one simple question that you send out, whether it's a full, I know a lot of folks work with the Best Christian Workplace Institute, which is they do fantastic work, but it's a very thorough, intensive assessment process. And then the staff never hears back. And so what that does is it actually erodes trust and furthers the story that your staff might be telling themselves, which is our leadership doesn't care, they're not listening to us, they're hiding things. So seeing that's the first step. That's why there's 5 because you're not
Yeah.
finished by just sending an assessment. So the second one is to say it. And in this part of the process, we want to define our values clearly. I know you guys went through this at Willow, which we've talked about in different settings, Tim. But yeah, this part is we like to see when it's very collaborative, when it's more bottoms up. As we always like to say, you really got to get weigh in before you can have buy in. So this is not just going straight to ChatGPT and asking for 5 values that would sound great and then telling your
Right.
team, hey, here are our values. Like that is not what we're talking about. This is a collaborative, um, intentional process to bring your team along on the journey. What would you add to that, Tim?
Yeah. And you workshop this with different groups and ask questions. When you can just kind of do this on a whiteboard, we'll spend like a whole afternoon with a team going through this process, talking about like, what's the best team you've ever been on? Like, and it could be a basketball team, could be a drama team, could be a staff, and then how would you define what the best team is you've ever been on? if this place could be everything you possibly imagined as a workplace, I'm not talking about a church, but as a workplace, what would that look like? And you just get people to dream, talk about the best places, talk about what they could dream this place could be like. One question I love to ask in the say it phase when we're kind of dreaming up the values is if I'm going to give you background first. Background is a lot of times when people leave churches, church staff, they can be burned out. Their kids maybe regret having ever been, kids of a church staff member. Not in every case, but you hear this a lot. So what I like to ask is, hey, if 10 years from now or 30 years from now, you left this staff and your spouse or your kids said, man, that was the greatest experience. I'm so glad my dad, I'm so glad my mom had that experience to work at that place. It was so good for our family. Like, what would it take to create that kind of environment? And so you're just dreaming really big. In the see it phase, you're kind of naming some of your lived values that may not be positive. In the say it phase, you're naming what you want your values to be. And it's perfectly okay if some of those are aspirational, and they will be, especially if you're rebuilding or you're coming out of a really difficult time. One other thing I'd say, if your church already has values, just see how fresh they are. Like if they're just in the employee handbook and they were written 7 years ago and no one could tell you what they are, start over. If someone can't, if like the previous pastor just did it a year ago and they're not here anymore, but they're still pretty fresh, work from those. You may need to do some refining, but you can work from those. But I'd say in most cases, when we're going and working with churches on this, we're starting from ground up. And
Mm.
I love what you said about kind of surface this from the bottom versus like, the leaders come down on high and say, here's your 5 values. Now start living them out. And we're going to evaluate you based on these. It's like, this has to be the way in before the buy-in.
Yeah, a church I was talking to recently, which is a smaller church, they had been through 4 lead pastors, Tim, in 18 months. 4 lead pastors in 18 months. And so now the senior pastor or lead pastor who's there has been there for about 5 years. So things are stabilized, it's healthy. But when he came on board, they established some values and they, put them on a wall or in their employee handbook. But what we were reflecting on was they really haven't been touched in the last 5 years. And so now the church is in a very different place than it was 5 years ago after going through so much tumultuous, time. And so what we talked about was asking, bringing the team together and saying, hey, what is still true? What do we feel like is still true of our team and what do we feel like isn't? And so, yeah, to your point, like it doesn't mean you have to start from scratch every time, but having those checkpoints of reflecting regularly of if you feel like you are in a different season of really asking yourself what's still true of us and what is not that we might need to change. So,
Yes.
all right.
And the third one,
Yes.
so we have see it, we have say it, and then we're going to saturate it. Like
Mhm.
we're going to get it into the very air that we breathe. And you do that by um, saying it so much, repeating it so often until you just think, if I say it one more time, I'm going to vomit. And then you keep saying it more. And so like, especially initially, often we'll do this unveil or we'll do this like, here's the values, yay. And we'll give everyone like a Yeti with the values on it or a screensaver or a poster and we'll put it on a wall and then that's it. And you just have to like continue to drive it, drive it, drive it, drive it. So the third one, saturate it, links pretty closely to systemize it, which is the fourth one. And that is the systemizing is how you saturate it. And so that's great. Put it on all the walls, put it everywhere, put on screensavers. That's great too. But also we're going to just constantly be talking about this. So we had 5 values at Willow and we would have a value of the month and every 5 months you just start over and never ending. Like we're just every 5 months, you're going to hear about all the values. And during that month, we're going to spend about 15 minutes in one of our staff meetings, all staff meetings, just having someone on staff that lives out that value come up and just talk about it. Tell a story, relate it to a Bible verse if they want, talk about where they've seen this in someone. We're going to have someone we have a staff newsletter that's going to just take an iPhone, record a video of themselves for 2 or 3 minutes talking about what that value means to them. We're going to have all of our leaders in their meetings that month just pose 2 or 3 questions just once or twice that month of like, hey, how are we doing? Our value is be kind to everyone. How are we doing with being kind to everyone? let's talk, how can we be better at being kind to everyone? Where do we need to grow in this? And you just get people to constantly be talking about, grasping, interacting with, until it's like the air that you breathe.
Yeah. Can you tell the quick story of at Willow when you guys rolled out the values blocks? And
Yeah.
because it's a great example of both saturate it and systematizing it with the decision that you made on that one of those values.
So we had these, if you can picture, a squishy ball. What do they call those? Tension balls?
Stress balls. Yeah.
Stress balls. But it's a cube. So it's a stress cube. Small, can fit in your hand. It's got 6 sides. So we had 5 values. So one side said staff values, and then the other 5 sides had each of the values on it. And when we were doing our kind of our first big staff meeting of like, we finally landed our values, and we'd had our entire staff involved in creating the values, but it's like we finally landed them. And so we bought stress cubes with all of these values on them. And we we get them like the day before. They kind of came in late, but the day before the big unveil, we're sitting in a meeting and we're just kind of like throwing these cubes around the room and kind of planning the next day. And I grabbed the cube, and I tell you what, I had proofread these things. Like our comms team had proofread these things. Um, I mean, there's probably 16 people that had their eyes on this, but we missed something. So I get this cube, and one of our values is be authentic, except it was spelled be authentic. So the T was missing. The second T was missing. So, and it was like the value was, it came out of a value of excellence. It had been one of the staff values and church values for a long, long time. And excellence is a great thing, but people had felt like excellence had been used against them. It had turned into perfection. And so perfection had become the value. And then that had been kind of used as a hammer. When people didn't get things right, then they'd just be dismissed. You get someone else in to do it right the next time. So that was kind of like the bad culture we were dealing with. And so be authentic was our sense of like, we don't need perfection. We just need you to bring the best of who you are. And for us, like in that moment, we were like, okay, do we throw these things away, or do we go ahead and present these to the staff? And it took us 3 or 4 minutes to come to the decision of, you know what, this is the best of who we are right now. The best of who we are is a freaking stress ball with a typo, and we don't know how to spell authentic. We're authentic. Um, but what stood out for the people, the legacy staff that had been there for a long time, a couple of them pulled me aside afterwards and they said, "What just happened?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, a year and a half, 2 years ago, we would have thrown all these away. I don't know if we would have fired, but someone would have been um, severely chastised, and we would have canceled the meeting, and we would have just waited until we could do this perfect." And they said, that just speaks so strongly to us, because like we're actually living out our value as we're presenting our value, even though we misspelled our value.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I've heard that story a million times, and I just love it so much every time because it's such a great example of sometimes we think about culture as like these big, sweeping, like getting the cubes would be an example of like a big investment of time, of money, of, which is great. Like that is a part of culture. Like what are the big visual things? But also it's in those small leadership moments that have the biggest impact when we think about saturating and systematizing of making the decision to go, you know what? This lives out our value by having the typo on here as a reminder of this is really what it looks like to be authentic. And so I just love that story. All right. So that was the four. So it's see it, say it, saturate it, systematize it, and then last but not least, spotlight it. And you just kind of touched on this, but once you've systematized it, we want to spotlight it by celebrating. 'Cause I don't know who said this. Maybe I don't know if it was Maxwell or somebody else, but what gets recognized gets repeated. And
Yep.
so really making sure that you are celebrating wins on a regular basis. Because we have to remember, our audience are a lot of executive leaders, and we're like, well, yeah, we just told that story, or we got to hear that story from the person in this other meeting that we were in. And we forget that our frontline team members, who often are the ones that are interacting with our volunteers and our congregation even more than we are, they aren't in all the meetings. They aren't hearing all the stories. And so for them to have those spotlight experiences where they are being recognized, not for who this is not a popularity contest. I'm pretty bullish on this. I worked on a team one time where I was like the broken record where we were incorporating a spotlight into our all staffs, and people were constantly highlighting, like, I'm going to highlight Tim today. I want to give him a high five because he's just so awesome and he takes such good care of people. And the value was not mentioned at all. It's like, we're not celebrating Tim. Like, sure, Tim is great. We're celebrating the value. Hey, I just wanted to highlight, um, I don't know. What did you say earlier? Be kind to everyone. Today I'm highlighting be kind to everyone. And Tim lived out being kind to everyone when he went out of his way to serve that single mom who came in our doors for the first time. And she, looked lost and lonely. And he just was late for this meeting because he was taking good care of making sure that she knew where she was going. And that is being kind to everyone. There's a huge difference. Might sound subtle, but it's actually a huge difference when we are spotlighting the value and less of the person.
Yeah. Love that. And I think you take time, you can take time in every single meeting to have spotlights to share wins. But every now and then just do something stupid crazy where you're given a trophy or an award or at Willow we'd have like the whole staff vote on, like, one of our values was choose joy. Like, who is living out the value of choosing joy the most? You get the whole staff to vote on it, and then you do some kind of, stupid $3.50 trophy or something that's just ridiculous, and give them a donut or whatever, have a balloon, and it's just you're raising up the value. You're celebrating the fact that, man, this is starting to get into the air that we breathe. And I know we talk about this a lot. We're convinced that staff culture, staff health is not static. It's either getting better or it's getting worse. There is no neutral, and it requires systematizing. It requires someone waking up every day thinking about, like, how do we make sure that this is getting better and not going downhill. And so, I mean, these things: the see it, say it, saturate it, systematize it, and spotlight it.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, if you are looking for coaching support around your staff culture, we would love to talk to you. It's one of me and Tim's favorite topics. So you can book a time on my calendar to talk more about that at leadingsmart.com. Click on Let's Talk, and we would love to explore that with you. All right, Tim, for our fun segment today, which I had a moment today, I was like, man, we've done a lot of I don't even know how many podcast episodes we've done, but I feel like I need some more inspiration around fun segments. So if you guys have any ideas for fun segments, send them my way. Would love to hear.
Are you running out of fun? I did not think
I
that was possible.
think I might be running out of fun.
Maybe it's just today. It's towards the end of the week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just today, where I have like 15 meetings in one day. Okay, so if you had to choose, like if you could only had these two choices for your vacation, and it was being in snowy mountains, like cozy cabin in a snowy mountain, or laying on the beach in Mexico. And it doesn't matter where. I'm saying Mexico, any beach, like a warm, sunny beach. What would your vacation choice be?
It would it would be a modification of the second one. I
Oh,
I love sun, I love looking at the ocean, I love water, I despise sand.
so you'd be like in a cabana,
I'd
at
be
the
in a
restaurant
cabana,
on the beach.
or I'd be, yes, like, there'd be concrete under my feet, but the sand would be like 6 feet away, and I'd be
Mhm.
looking over the sand at all the people laying on the beach, like, looking at the ocean.
Yeah, yeah. That's
That's what I do. My wife does not mind sand at all, so our tradition is, like, she'll often do, like, a long walk on the beach in the morning. She likes to get up super early with the sun,
mhm.
and then we'll hang out by the pool and read books and talk, and that's a great vacation. I love mountains too, but if I'm choosing, those are my two choices. What
Yeah.
about you?
My answer used to be the mountains, and I mean, I would say, like, I like less snowy mountains and more like if I had to choose the Rockies or which is this was not my question, but I'm just gonna share. If I had to choose
Feel
between the
free.
Rockies and the Smokies, like, I would choose the Smoky Mountains. But more recently, I feel like as I once I feel like I went to the beach in California maybe for the first time when I was in college, actually. Yeah, I think it was. I think I went to San Diego in college and just was like, holy cow. Cause I grew up when we would go to the beach, it would be like Gulf Shores or,
Yeah.
cause I grew up in Tennessee or Florida. And so to experience the Pacific Ocean was just like, oh my goodness. And so now on my really stressful days, I think about, man, looking out over the ocean of just the reminder of, and I feel like that way when I'm on a mountaintop too, but just that, like, just the reminder that it's the God and nature, it's just like there's something bigger than us, and I am so
Yeah.
small. So,
And it kind of lifts like whatever pressure you're feeling when you're in those even just sitting outside, which I'm doing right now. It just kind of lifts, like it just lifts
mm,
the stress a little bit.
yeah, for sure. So good. All right. Well, that was my fun segment for the day. So,
Pretty fun. All
yeah.
right, I'll work on next week's fun segment.
Okay.
You can
Perfect.
take a break.
That's awesome. Well, everybody, thanks again for joining us today. As always, if you've got topics that you want to hear, we're not quite sure yet when season 3 is going to wrap up, but it probably will be sooner rather than later. So if there are topics that you're dying to hear, let us know. And also make sure that you check out our ebook that accompanies this season, the Simply Strategic Show. If you go to leadingsmart.com, click on resources, and then it's the first one. The Simply Strategic one is the first one on that page. And then if there's anything we can help you with, I got from our last couple of episodes on board governance and strategic planning, I've gotten a couple of folks that have booked time on my calendar. And I just love having those conversations, hearing what's top of mind for you. That's what we're all about. Oh, the other thing too, I think this will be going out before we are at Exponential in Orlando, Tim. So
Yeah.
if you are going to be there at Exponential in Orlando, let us know. We'd love to see you. We're doing 4 workshops. Our Leading Smart team is doing 4 workshops. Dave Dummett's going to join us. So the 3 of us are doing individual workshops, and then we'll have one with all of us. So make sure you come by and say hello. We'd love to see you.
Yeah, we would love to see you talk, help if we can in any way.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.